Berachot Perek Bet Mishnah Zayin. As always, I want to dedicate this learning to the memory of my father, Rav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. We're continuing with our Mishnayot that are discussing the changes, not the changes, the sort of different things that Rabban Gamliel did with regard to certain halachic issues. It's a very interesting series of Mishnayot that Rabban Gamliel he washed after his wife died, and then on the first night that he got married, he said Kriyat Shema. So this Mishnah continues in a similar vein. Ukshemet Tavi Abda. When Tavi, his servant, died, Kibel alav tanchumin. Read it again. Ukshemet Tavi Abdo, Kibel alav tanchumin. When his Eved, his slave Tavi, died, Gamliel accepted tanchumin. Nechama accepted, people were menachem avel. They offered him consolation. Now, first of all, we have to understand what kind of Eved was Tavi. His name was Tavi. So there are two kinds of halacha, two kinds of abadim. There's what's called an Eved Ivri, and then there's an Eved Kanani. Eved Ivri is a Jew, full Jew for everything. Okay, and then there's something called Eved Kanani. An Eved Kanani is a non-Jew that is converted for the sake of avdut, and he has the level of mitzvot as a woman. Okay, so therefore he's not chayav in mitzvot asay she'asman grama. He's not obligated. So there are a lot of interesting things that other Mishnayot tell us about this servant of Rabban Gamliel named Tavi. So one of the things the Gemara says is that Tavi wore tefillin. Even though women were not obligated to wear tefillin, there's a mitzvah asay she'asman grama. It's a positive time-bound commandment. Nonetheless, Tavi put on tefillin. There's another Mishnah in Sukkah that says that Tavi, he slept in the Sukkah, even though he's not required to, but he slept in a place that he wasn't chayav. He slept in a place like under the bed. So he slept under the bed to show that even though he knew he wanted to sleep in the Sukkah, he knew the halachot. So the students, when Tavi died, so Rabban Gamliel was very upset, and he accepted tanchum, he accepted nichum aved. Amru lo talmidav. So the student said to him, Lo limadatanu rabbeinu she'en mekablim tanchumim al ha'avadim. You told us there's no such thing as nichum avedim for avadim. There's no consolation. There's no mourning for avadim. And there's two things that we're asking him. First of all, Rabban Gamliel, he's not your son, he's not your father, he's not a relative. So why are you accepting nichum at all? And the second thing is he's an Eved, so you're not supposed to accept nichum. Amar lahem, ein Tavi Avdi keshar kol ha'avadim, kasher haya. Tavi Avdi, my servant Tavi, my slave, he wasn't a servant, he was a slave. Tavi was not like all of the other slaves, kasher haya. He was a kasher, he was a worthwhile, he was a very upstanding person that merited to have for us to be avilut. On the one hand, he was a kasher because he knew, he was a Talmid Chacham. On the second hand, it's interesting, there were two types of slaves. I saw it in a different book. There were two types of slaves that they had. They had field slaves and house slaves. And the house slaves, as you can understand, became really parts of the family. And there are other sources, Tanaic sources, that show us that Rabban Gamliel's children called him Abba. He was really a member of the family. And it shows very much how Rabban Gamliel saw Tavi as part of the family. He gave him kavod, he gave him honor, he really respected him. And when Tavi passed away, the family felt the loss. And so on the one hand, we struggle with the idea of slaves and servitude and how Jews had slaves. But on the other hand, there is really a very enlightened perspective, if you think about it for the time, that Rabban Gamliel saw his slave not as property necessarily per se, but he saw him as a person to be valued, as a person for whom one should mourn, and really as a member of the family in the full religious sense. Have a great day. Wish you all a good day. If you have any questions or comments, rspolter@gmail.com.